everybody. It's Wits and Brains with the coolest chicks on a podcast, Casey and Catherine. Today we are talking about Grin and Barrett. We're going to talk about leaders. Get this, it's a crazy idea. Leaders taking responsibility. What do you think of that, Casey?
What a concept.
Crazy talk.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked for a leader that did not take responsibility?
Yes, I have. I actually was just having this conversation with someone earlier this week. She had reached out and she said, "Hey, do you have a contact at such and such?" And I literally, I probably shouldn't have done this, but sometimes I just can't help myself. I literally responded with like 5 million ha-has. And I was like, boy, do I, but nope, we're not going there. And I will not mention my name.
That's right. That's right. I myself have worked with amazing leaders, but crappy.
Yeah.
The people that wouldn't take responsibility for anything.
Yeah. When I worked,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I worked for that company, we had a rather large client and they're like PR people. So they're sticklers on every type of communication. I mean, as expected. And we were writing blogs and I wrote the blog, the owner of the company edited the blog. And then literally it was like, it was one of the first 2 sentences in it. And the owner, our client, came back and specifically pointed out those edits that the owner had made my boss. And I was blamed for it because it was my client or my account. And I'm like, seriously?
Yeah. It stinks when you were treated so unjust like that. And that's what it is. It's serious. It's serious. It's like like an epidemic or something. I see it all the time, but not only that, there's like a statistic out there of like, if you have 100 workers, 75 of them probably believe that you would not be responsible.
Wow.
So that's kind of outrageous. If we want to like fix some organizational culture or whatever, maybe you should start being responsible first as a leader. Like start at the top. Yeah, I can't believe that. But you know, I'm seeing this a lot. And I don't know if your work, if you're seeing it a lot or whatever, but I used to just see it like at top. But now I'm seeing middle, because middle is starting to play a bigger role in big companies. And I'm starting to see that, you know, they're starting to blame the poor guy out there barely making anything instead of taking their responsibility. And it's gross to me.
Yeah. I mean, I've had conversations with my team and obviously, you know, we're a small team. And, you know, I've said like during team meetings, like we need to get on our A game. And I will blatantly say it's not just you all, like it's me too. I accept that responsibility. And to me, it's so important as a leader to not exclude yourself. Like, and even when I was 19, like I got into management and I always said, I will always have boots on the ground because I need to know what you're doing as, you know, a frontline worker so that I can make better decisions. And I don't understand when a leader, for one, doesn't take the initiative to get involved. And then 2, they even remove themselves further by not accepting responsibility for anything.
Yeah, it's like they'll run the opposite direction when there's trouble. They are not grinning and bearing it, first of all. And then, you know, the poor sucker that has to, it's not right. It's not right. So I thought this would be a good topic for the 2 of us, because I'm sure we've had some beautiful experiences of nice and then not so nice treatment of managers. And I just want to make sure that us and our followers do not fall into a trap of taking the easy route out and trying to like ignore it. and not being responsible. First of all, if you want to increase your production, you be that leader that's super responsible. And every
Absolutely.
time I say the word increase production, just put dollar signs, because that's what that means.
Yeah.
I know as a leader, it's not always fun taking responsibility. So I'm not going to sit here like with my head in the clouds and act like it is, because it's not. I've
Gotta
had,
swallow your pride.
right. It's so uncomfortable, but that's okay. That's okay. We can be uncomfortable as leaders because we know we have to grin and bear it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have witnessed other leaders make some terrible mistakes. Have you witnessed that yourself?
Yeah. So I actually, before we started recording, and first of all, I've never heard my dog snore so loud before. So I apologize to our listeners if you can hear this 25-pound dog sounding like a hibernating bear.
He needs to take responsibility.
He does. He is passed out. But anyways,
Feel free to show his little face if you feel like it.
I might just have to at
Okay.
some point. Yes, I might wake him up if I do. So before we got on today, we were having a little conversation about how it's been a strenuous week, and it's interesting because we as leaders deal with being like a B2B business. Like we deal with other leaders a lot, and the ones who are all in, they are like, I made a mistake. And then we deal with those who aren't so graceful about it.
Yes, you're exactly right.
Yeah. So with me being in marketing, you want to talk about like the impact of dollar signs and the lack of, or the potential lack of. I was dealing with a PR nightmare this week where a client, so, we handle their digital media. So like we're doing everything from social media to whatever. And one of the owners decided that it was okay to voice their opinion on social media about someone's sexuality, and posted, pictures and put like feeling disgusted and all this stuff. And for one, it was heart-wrenching to me. And I'll kind of go off on a little side tangent for a second. It's so fascinating to me. Like in my area, I literally experienced that during the day. And then at night, I sat down with a new client who, when I was doing their kickoff meeting, we're talking about their values, and they're like, this is a safe space for kids to come. If they're gay, we want them to know that they can come here and sing and still feel masculine. Like if they're bisexual, same thing. Like we want them to be their authentic self. And just the complete opposite ends of that spectrum, like right here in my town, just it shows how much diversity that we have, but it also reminds us of how sensitive we have to be. And for this particular situation, this person put this information out, it spread like wildfire, and shit hit the fan. Excuse my language, but it did.
Right.
And we did so much damage control.
Right.
And the thing that was so heart-wrenching is the person did not accept responsibility. And I had so many conversations like, this is done. It's out there. It's screenshotted. There's no taking it back. You have to absolutely accept responsibility for what you've done and the ramifications that are coming with it. It's going to impact your bottom line. It's going to impact your reputation. Like all the things it's impacting because you felt that it was necessary to be irresponsible and do what you did.
Mhm.
And from a media perspective, to recover from that in a business is extremely difficult. But then even from an internal perspective, which I'm sure you deal with a lot, you lose so much respect as a leader when A, you do something that's uncalled for, and then B, you don't own up to it. It's like, okay, put your big girl panties on or your big guy panties on, own up to it. You were brave enough to do it. Now be brave enough to accept the consequences, you know?
That's right. I will see leaders, and it doesn't even have to be a big thing. The big things, boy, would we like people to take responsibility. But even the little things hurt.
Mhm.
Like, talk about social media. I was having a conversation one day. So a different consultant made a meeting with me. We had a meeting and asked for advice, which is actually common in the consultant world, right? Like people have advice, you ask advice, whatever. But then the next day on social media, I was scrolling through. I see my words on social media with their name attached to them.
Oh, how nice.
Instead of like, hey, had a great meeting with, Catherine, so much fun. She said this, whatever. And I thought, boy, wouldn't I have liked you to like take responsibility and like, give me the 1 ounce of credit that, you could have given me. So it can be little things, it can be big things. I wish leaders would take responsibility for big things. That business will close if they don't. Let's
Oh,
just
yeah.
go to the bottom line.
Yeah,
It will
absolutely.
close. And you can screw it up so quick by being the person not taking responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been out in the public seeing leaders at various restaurants. Um, oh gosh, gross stories, yelling at workers when it was them that bought the bad product, or it was, they did it. Take responsibility. So, what do you think? What kind of advice would you give a new leader if something happens, something bad breaks, something bad happens, and it's them and it's their team of 10? Those 10 people deserve a great leader. What kind of advice would you give a new leader like that if something goes wrong?
So for me, I think it starts before the event, so to speak, actually happens. And
Agree.
the one thing, well, the two things that come to mind are stay humble no matter what. So even like it's okay to celebrate, but don't boast, don't be so prideful.
Yeah.
For one, that's especially going to play a huge role when something does go wrong, because if you show that arrogance and that pride, that just makes matters 10 times worse. And then to me, if you aren't taking responsibility when something is clearly your fault, or if you clearly had a part in it, there's a form of manipulation there. And that leads to
Yes.
distrust.
Yes.
Yeah, your team can't trust you if you're not being sincere, if you're not being upfront, all the things. Like it produces a horrible cultural environment. So I say be humble and don't manipulate.
Right. It is a form of manipulation,
Yeah.
because you're saying, hey, everybody, I want you to take credit for this really horrible thing. I'm going to go sit back here on my throne and I'm going to,
Yeah. And
I
I
don't know.
can because I'm in power,
Right.
which
Right.
is
So,
a
yeah,
problem.
I would tell that person to expect to take responsibility.
Yeah.
Maybe some leaders start jobs and they don't realize that, but people need to be told to expect it. And hey, I'm going to guarantee you something crappy is going to happen.
Yeah. And another thing that comes to mind with that being said is do the personal work that you need to do, because if you are still dealing with some insecurities, I mean, it could be that, your teacher yelled at you about the color pen you were using, in third grade or whatever. Like it could be
Right.
something so small, or it could be something like detrimental. But look at that and look how it affects your self-esteem, your self-worth, the stories you tell yourself, and all of that, because chances are that if you haven't dealt with those issues, you're going to automatically be on the defensive side, and you're not going to want to take responsibility because that deems you as wrong or bad or whatever you want to call it. And that just perpetuates the issue.
Yes. I have told many of people, if you don't want to lead, then don't take the leader job.
Yeah.
I mean, as simple as that sounds. Also, if you have a department or whatever, you are those people's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're talking about responsibility big time. You are responsible for them. And if people are coming into your department and saying, hey, you're Susie Q, she sucks. Hey, Jim Bob, he's an awful person. And you are not taking responsibility for holding up and for those people and being an advocate, get out of the position because you stink.
Yeah. Don't we have an episode about stinking?
We did. I think we've hit all kinds of disgusting episodes and
I-
more to come.
Yes, guaranteed.
Next week's episode is going to be about, are you the pimple popper? I can't say it. Oh my gosh, this is so stupid. We're talking about pimple popping next time. So we jumped from responsibility to pimple popping in no time at all.
In true Kathy and Casey fashion.
That's right. Okay, so the leader has to be responsible. If they don't, the business closes. And you know what? You deserve it. How about that?
Tell us how you really feel.
You deserve it. And then if you have a large corporation and you're not paying attention to those leaders, then you deserve it.
Yeah.
Companies 25 years ago were Fortune 500 and they don't even exist now. It's probably something like this. It's probably their leaders stunk, not just a product or a service or logistics or whatever. They probably had crappy leaders that wouldn't take responsibility.
Yeah. And I would say, as a leader from the very top, first of all, I'm a firm believer in the fish rots from the head. So
Yeah.
make sure that you're not that one, but also don't ever allow yourself to get to a point. I don't care if you have 1,000 employees or 5,000 employees. Don't allow yourself to get to the point where people are just a number, because that's when you lose touch. And then you do have all those people who are ruining the culture of your business and not taking responsibility. And then you're losing productivity. And we all know what happens then.
We know what happens. Goodbye.
Yes. Yes. Well, full disclosure, I love Dr. Pimple Popper because I'm just gross like that, but that's okay. So I'm excited for next week's episode.
Next week's episode, ladies and gents who follow Wits and Brains, it is, are you the pimple popper of your business? Well, are you? All right, we'll see you next week. Follow us, subscribe, send us emails. We appreciate you. Goodbye.